Welcome to the Arseholics podcast, everyone. On a Wednesday evening, it's the biggest episode so far of the season because, in theory, it's I suppose is this officially the first episode of the season? Does that count? Is that how this works?
Yeah, kind of feels like it, right? Pre-season not over. So yeah, this is like the first proper one, I'd say.
Yeah, we're slowly approaching match sharpness. We're ready to go.
That's a good way of putting it. And this is today we're going to cover our season preview and predictions. So with me, Raj, you got Mize and you got Aaron in. Nero has also given his predictions. He has given his predictions, right? Is that
No,
right?
he hasn't.
Did he not?
No, he hasn't.
He hasn't.
No.
Forget what I said. Sorry about that. Nero hasn't given us his predictions, and he's not here either. So actually, that makes it easier. Sorry for confusing you all. We're going to get into it in a second. What we'll also do, depending on time, we'll cover the breaking news that Arsenal have agreed a deal for David Raya in a type of deal that I don't think anyone was expecting, a loan with an option to buy. So we might discuss that later if we can. And we will preview the Nottingham Forest game. But guys, before we get into our season preview and predictions, anything you want to say?
I'm ready. Are you ready? How do you guys feel? Are you ready for another big season?
Yeah, I feel, when I was thinking about my predictions, I couldn't help but almost have to sort of manage my own expectations a little bit. I'm feeling incredibly positive, but I'm just trying to keep my feet on the ground a little bit. And I suppose in that respect, I've gone quite conservative with my predictions, I think. But I feel really good. I'm super excited. It feels like it's impossible not to be excited right now about Arsenal. What about you, Aaron? And how do you feel?
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm very excited. Look, I think it's been from an organizational standpoint, our summer has been fantastic. Far exceeded any of my expectations in terms of how we'd get deals done, how we'd get signings done, like the speed at which we'd get it done. I know we grumble about being drip-fed transfer information, but the fact is, like, our transfer, except this Raya stuff, that our transfer stories have been pretty boring for the last 4 weeks because we got it all done pretty much before we went on tour. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to go back to the Emirates on Saturday. Shame about the early kickoff, which is kind of makes it a bit less fun. Like a 3 p.m. would have been ideal, but such is the cost of being a big team that TV people want to show you on TV all the time. So yeah, looking forward to it. I think the atmosphere is going to be incredible this season. It's going to be a lot of fun. Team is going to be a lot of fun. I'm sure there'll be ups and I'm sure there'll be downs, but yeah, we go again. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, just on your point on transfers, you're right. It has been relatively boring because we've been just so effective and efficient. But Russ's point here about Russ is saying, I think we'll sign one more player in brackets after Raya. That is a bit of a hypothesis that's going around on Twitter today,
really?
Right? About
how many more do people want?
No. So the reason is because what people are suggesting is that it seemed that by all accounts we were doing a normal cash deal for Raya, and it feels like all of this kind of conversion to a loan with a kind of option to buy and I don't know how we managed to sort of pull that off if it was a fairly last minute kind of thing. But the hypothesis is perhaps we've identified another player that we want, that we think we can get, and the only way we can make FFP work is by doing this deal, as opposed to we were always going to do a deal like this. That's the hypothesis that's floating around.
I think that is optimistic.
I agree with Russ, to be honest. Yeah, I think I've been saying this for a while. I think that Saka backup does not exist at the moment. We are one Saka injury away from. I mean, there's options, but there's probably no options that are tried and tested and proven that we definitely know are gonna, capably deputise for Saka for a period of games. I think that's one, and we were obviously linked with the guy that's Brighton have apparently agreed a fee for. I've forgotten his name already.
Kudus,
yeah, that's the one. So obviously we are looking at that position, and we were last season as well. When you think about the links with players like, so I think if there's going to be a signing anywhere, it might be there.
I would be gobsmacked if we signed another, like for decent money, unless we signed a Marquinhos type to come in for like from the Brazilian league, I would be gobsmacked if we signed another like big money. Well, I say big, like double-digit millions player. Like you look at the three guys on the photo there. If you can't see it, it's our three big signings this summer. That's almost 200 million. Like that is for us 200 million in one summer. I know it's not like we literally take 200 million pounds out of our bank account and give it to the clubs, but I think the only way we were able to sign David Raya, or we're hopefully going to sign David Raya, is because like this is the only way we could have made it work. Because I think
there's some big outgoings to come, most probably, right? If anyone, we've obviously turned down 40 million pounds for Balogun. So then we're obviously going to try and get as much as possible, but it looks like that's going to be, well, 40 million plus, could be pushing 45, 50 million maybe. Tierney, I think, is another player that we're sort of waiting to see what happens in the window. 20, 30-ish million. That's a lot of money to come in. So we're not done with sales for sure.
I guess the assumption would have been that those sales were going to have happened to facilitate the purchases that we've already made.
I think the Balogun one, yeah. I don't know about Tierney. I mean, he's had minutes in pre-season. He came on again on Sunday. I don't think we sell him unless the right money comes in. I don't think he's out of contract yet. Like, he's in for another.
Oh no, but what I mean is, I think so. So I think we would have planned potentially to make those sales anyway to facilitate these kind of transfers. But I completely agree that it would only have been at the right price. Yeah. But at the same time, I think at the end of the day, it's like we don't know, right? We genuinely don't know. We don't know what they thought that their net spend limit was going to be. So I totally agree with you in the sense that I've always got the feeling that clearly like they don't really have anyone else in the squad that they think is a suitable right wing backup for Saka. And so if the right option came along, maybe. But I sort of got the impression they sort of just gave up on that. But this is interesting, the hypothesis that maybe we found someone now, and as Russ has kind of mentioned again, like that sort of I heard the same thing about Kudus. So Russ saying Kudus is stalling on the Brighton move. It does sound like there's a hold up there. There's something that's not quite kind of right yet. So who knows? Anyway, should we get on to the preview and predictions?
Let's
do this. Excellent. All right, so this is what we've done, guys. We have got a number of different categories here. We've got Premier League winner. We've got who's going to make the top 5. And typically, we're doing top 5 now, not top 4, given it's fairly likely that 5th place in the Premier League gets a Champions League spot. There's a Champions League. So who do we think is going to win the Champions League? And where we think Arsenal are going to be. And similarly for the FA Cup, Carabao Cup, who's going to be Arsenal's top scorer? Who's going to be Arsenal's player of the season? Who's going to be the surprise player for Arsenal this season? Someone who we think punches above expectations. Who's going to be the flop team in the Premier League? So he's going to do much worse than expected. And what's our hot take? So we've each given one hot take. So that's been a pretty open-ended question. So without further ado, let's get into it. So Premier League winner. Miles, do you want to flash them up on the screen? So amazing. What? So hang on, calm down. So I have gone with Man City. Miles has gone with Man City, and Aaron has gone with Arsenal.
And I get accused of being the negative one on this podcast.
I know. Maybe we just. I think we just we are more conservative generally.
I don't think predicting City to win the league is being negative though, or Arsenal to finish wherever we're going to say in that next category. But yeah, it's not really an out there prediction.
Explain yourselves. Where do we? Why?
I think you should go first, mate. To be honest, as in, I think you should probably explain why you think Arsenal. Given given it's sort of not that say it's 2-1, but given that you've kind of got a different opinion.
All right, I think my rationale is based on two things. It sounds very obvious, but us being better and City not being as good. I think, look, I don't think I need to spend too much time on it. I think we'll be better this season, right? Tactically, in terms of squad depth, in terms of personnel, it's very, very hard to argue that we do not have a better squad this season than last season. I think if you were being really harsh, we were one Saliba injury away from winning the league last season. And I think what we needed was a bit like if we had a decent option at centre back and we weren't resorting to Rob Holding coming in. And look, yes, there were a few players that didn't hit form, but ultimately that was the big thing. We probably would have picked up the 6 or 7 points that we needed. We might have done a bit better against Man City. And look, I think it would have been a lot closer. Now, so I think with the additions of, the big additions that we have made, the fact that Saliba is back, the fact that I think Declan Rice is going to add so much to our squad. Timber we've seen so far has added just at worst another backup option, but at best like another option who can come in and compete for a starting role and kind of do the whole inverted fullback thing. And then Havertz is the kind of wild card there. We don't really know what he's going to give us just yet, but kind of I'm banking that Arteta can just work his magic on him and turn him into a player that can really, especially in the big moments, step up for us. So yeah, I think that alone makes us concede 7 or 8 goals. I think we conceded about 40 goals last season. I think we probably conceded about 32, 33. And then I don't think we'll score that many more because I think overall, I don't think we're hugely, I don't think we've added too many more goals to the team because Xhaka's goals have come out and Havertz's goals will hopefully come in. But I think overall we'll pick up just a few more points. And then I think the other thing is I'm not confident City. Look, it's very, very hard to doubt Pep and City when they've got the monster that is Erling Haaland up front. But I think as it stands now, I look at their squad and I think it sounds crazy, but there's just a lot riding on Haaland and De Bruyne this season. And look, they are players you can bank on, right? Like they are 2 of the best players in the world. So it's not crazy to bank on those players. But one injury to Haaland, and then I think their levels drop significantly. One injury to De Bruyne, and then I think their creativity currently looks a bit weaker. So yeah, I think they probably drop a few more points. And I think we do it. I think this is going to be our year.
Very hard to argue with anything you say, to be honest, personally.
Don't.
Well, just change my thing. Yeah. Miles, do you want me to go? Do you want to go?
Yeah, go for it, mate. Yeah, go for it.
As I say, it's hard, and honestly, I was thinking about going either way, and even actually more for some of to back up your reasons for Arsenal. I mean, one of the main things for me is actually just the desire point, right? I imagine with Man City winning so many titles in a row and finally winning the treble, it must be really hard to then come into the next season after you finally won this treble. You come in and you've got all these other teams, including Arsenal, who ran you really close, who really, really want to win the Premier League, like desperately want to win the Premier League. It's huge for any of those clubs to win the Premier League. But for you, it's just going to be like the 4th in a row after you've just won the treble. I think it is hard. And for all the other reasons that you said, I think it is there's genuine reason why it could be challenging. They've added Guardiola, that is kind of impressive signing. But otherwise, look, I totally agree. The thing that I worry a little bit with us is, you're right in terms of we've added all this quality, and the competition for places, I think, for us is going to be huge. It's going to be such a big thing for us this year, such an important thing, an amazing quality. I think that we'll have is just that competition for places. But we weren't in the Champions League last season, and we are this season. And it's going to be a little bit of a different dynamic that basically none of our players, a few have, like Havertz, Jorginho, etc., and Jesus, Zinchenko, but the vast majority of the squad have not played in the Champions League. It's a huge deal for them, and us not being able to, play a B team for the Champions League games. We're going to still be navigating that and the emotions around that. I think that's just an added kind of dynamic, which I'm a bit worried about us being able to navigate as effectively as City, basically. But in reality, like that's kind of it. Otherwise, I find it really hard to split the teams. I think I'm just going with Man City for that experience, for the fact that I think even though they have lost a couple of players, it still looks like they're trying to sign one or two players. We've seen them linked with Paqueta, for example, who I don't think is as good as what they've lost personally. So yeah, but still, I think they may bolster it. But yeah, man, I'm going with the experience that they have, to be honest, and just that little bit of extra inexperience that we have now. We're trying to navigate the Champions League as well. Mize, any different points?
Not massively. I think your rationale for...
I can't hear you.
I can hear you, mate. Carry on.
Oh, okay.
I think blatantly something wrong with me again. You guys carry on.
Okay, cool.
Carry on, Wes.
Yeah. So I think, to be fair, both of you have put really good arguments across, and obviously Aaron and I hope that you're right when it comes to the end of the season. But I think Raj kind of summed up a lot around my thoughts on City as well. I mean, you look at, I think there's a lot of talk about, City have won the treble. Is the motivation there with the players? But I think when you've got the standards, just they can't slip. I think as soon as that starts to happen with his Man City side, that's probably to think, it's time to walk away and try something different. I just can't really envisage this drop at all. The risk of him being injured, and it does affect them, but that's probably the same for a lot of teams. Place that we've got, for example, we're a couple of. I know we've got a great squad now, but like we said before, injury. Got Hayes injured, add another one. Our team looks completely different. I just don't really see City letting up as long as Pep's there. I think he's been manager. Obviously, first season he didn't win the league, but you could argue that was his first season. And the only other season he hasn't won the league is when Liverpool, had an unbelievable season. They've been hitting 90+ points regularly. And I think they're just this machine that unfortunately is just going to be too much for us and too much for any other team to get past. So I'm going with City again. I think we'll push them, and I think there might be one or two other clubs that might push them in terms of a title race this season. But I think they're still gonna have too much.
Do you think it'll be like last season? So I think the one thing that annoys me about last season is the way we, let's say, lost it, was the fact that we were top for pretty much the whole season, and we didn't do it right. So the only way, there's always going to be that fear of failure again. Even if we're 7 points clear in March, they won't believe, right? Whereas if City were 7 points clear in March, I think it'd be title race over. And I think that is going to be a theme. Even if we start well, we started well last season, we didn't do it. And I wonder if the pressure of last season might get to us a bit, because we're not going to know until we do it, right? So that's the annoying part, but that was always going to be the case. To beat Man City, they're not going to let you win it in March or April. You're going to have to win it in May. I just think we had so much key man risk in our first 11 last season. We survived a lot, right? We lost Jesus for so long. Eddie and then Trossard came in and stepped up, and we covered that gap. We lost. I can't remember who else was out for a bit, but we played a few different systems, and we lost players, and other players came in and they covered. But now I think, except as we were discussing earlier, that risk to the Saka injury, I'd probably say actually you've got options for pretty much every single person in the first choice 11, and as it stands now, I don't even think City have that right now. They've got very, very good, very expensive options in most positions, and they can. And Pep is Pep, so he can find those gaps and he can be creative and he can cover and change a system just like that. But we have got a very, very good squad, and City might add a few players and it could change things. Look, I even saw that they were linked with Matoma, Paqueta. Like if they get those two in, it's probably a very different conversation, right? But as it stands now, I do see a bit of weakness.
I mean, the thing I would say, just to kind of counter that slightly, is you mentioned Haaland and De Bruyne as sort of two key players. De Bruyne didn't play every game last season. He was on the bench a fair bit, and Pep was doing his usual kind of tinkering or whatever he was doing. I think that maybe there was some fitness issues there as well. So you could argue that they won the league without KDB being ever present. And also, Haaland scored a shitload of goals. He scored 36, I think it was, in the league. I could be wrong. But I've just checked. They still scored 94 goals overall. So I'm not saying you take his goals out and they're the same team, because, of course, that's not the case. But I think what that shows is they've still got plenty of goals across the team. And I know Mahrez has left. I know Gundogan's left. That does leave a bit of a hole. And it's up to players like Grealish, Foden, etc. to step up. But I think what that shows is City under Pep have always been this team that they just get goals from everywhere. They've got the ability to obliterate teams. And like you said before, it gets to that crunch time and they know what to do when it gets to March, April, whether they're ahead of a team or whether they're chasing. So, and like Rashford as well, the experience of them having done it so many times with the same manager, a winning manager. You wouldn't put it past them for them to do the treble a second time in a row. Like, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you know what I mean? Like, the odds can't be that massive for that to happen. So I can't really look past them. But obviously, I hope that we push them, and I hope that we find a way somehow to do it.
I mean, they're probably favourites to win every competition that they're in, right? Like, so
It seems so. Yeah. It's a tough way. If they end up winning the treble, like Muzzy just alluded to, it's pretty depressing, actually. Do you know what I mean? Because it's such an amazing thing to achieve. It's also been this build-up where they arguably should have done it before. And now, as you know, they've lost a couple of players, and then if they do it again, it's just like, what else is everyone playing at? But so you hope whatever kind of punishment for the 115 charges comes quickly, don't you? So anyway, look, should we move on to the top five?
Let's do
it.
So what do we think is going to be the rest of the top five? So I have gone for Man City winning, but then followed by Arsenal, Man United, Chelsea, and Liverpool in that order. Mize has gone for, again, with Man City winning, he's gone for Arsenal second, Liverpool third, Man United fourth, and Chelsea fifth. And Aaronen has gone for, obviously, Arsenal winning, and then he's gone for City second, Liverpool third, Man United fourth, Brighton fifth. So, Mize, why don't you go and explain? So, talk me through Arsenal second, Liverpool third, United fourth, Chelsea fifth. Talk me through that.
Arsenal second. Like Aaron was saying before, there's reasons why he thinks that we're going to basically win it. I agree with a lot of those, and I think we've clearly built our squad to be able to compete in the league and the Champions League. We've spent big money, and I think even if we go better than we did last season in terms of kind of everything, goals, points, and so on, I still think that might not be enough. But I think we'll be kind of best of the rest, as it were. In terms of so Liverpool third. I really fancy Liverpool this season. Obviously, they're not in. They didn't finish in the top four last season. I think Klopp will be desperate to get them back into the Champions League. I think that's really their main target this season. There's concerns with Liverpool in terms of defense, and they've sold Fabinho, they've sold Henderson. They need a CDM desperately. They're obviously trying to get Lavia. And so I think, there's a gap in their midfield, and I think defensively they could be a bit dodgy. But you look at their forwards and you look at who they've got in terms of firepower, and it's kind of mental, really. And I'm really backing Darwin Núñez to have a good season this season. So I think it's his second season in the league, or maybe joined in January the season before, but I can't remember. But basically, sort of second season, I think he's going to do really, really well. I think he's one of the. I really like him as a player, and I think he's capable of scoring 20 Premier League goals. And they, obviously got quality across the pitch. You think of Salah and Alisson and Van Dijk and Trent. So, yeah, I'm going for them after us. United, I think, will be a kind of similar-ish season to last season. They've obviously addressed the goalkeeper situation. Another season under Ten Hag, or second season under Ten Hag. And yeah, I think they'll do pretty well, but I don't think they'll... I'm not sure if they'll be in a title race. Maybe they'll be up there until, February, March time, but I'm not sure. I think they've got Champions League as well, and I think maybe there might be a distraction there. But yeah, I'm going for them to finish fourth.
Sorry, mate. Like, should we just stay on the Liverpool point for a second? We might as well do that because Aaron, and you've also gone Liverpool third, and actually, therefore, kind of your top three, apart from kind of your top, both Myers and Aaron, and both your top threes consist of City, Arsenal, Liverpool in some way, which I find quite interesting. I'm quite intrigued that you've both gone for Liverpool, so maybe there is something that you guys are seeing that I'm not. But Aaron, is there anything that you want to add to what Mike said about Liverpool?
I agree. I thought a lot about if I'd put Man United ahead of Liverpool. It was like 50-50. And if I'm being honest, maybe personal bias, put Man United a bit lower than Liverpool just because I think I'd like to see that happen. But I could easily see Man United, Liverpool being the other way around. I think a lot of it is also down to what I see the other teams around that top 4, top 5 doing. And I don't really rate the chances of the others too much for various reasons. But yeah, I think it's with Myers. I think Klopp is tactically still a very, very good manager. They had a terrible season last season and they finished 5th. Is that right? Or 6th last season?
Liverpool.
5th.
Liverpool, yeah. 5th.
Yeah.
5th. And that was like them being awful for a huge chunk of that season. And I think they've cleared out some of their dross. They've improved their midfield a little bit. They have some work to do. I have no idea why they're not going for someone like Caicedo, for example, and why they're struggling to get the valuation for Lavia. I think they'll be organised, and I think they'll figure out what to do with Trent. Robertson's still there. Van Dijk's still an excellent defender. Yes, he might have dropped off a bit in terms of age, and then they've got Salah, who's one of the best players in the world still, in my opinion. So I think it's hard for them to be as bad as they were, and I think both whoever finishes third will probably again finish probably quite far off because I don't think defensively. I think defensively you've got City and Arsenal who are probably considerably better. Unless something magically changes with these other teams, they'll struggle defensively, and that's where I think a bunch of these teams might find it a bit tricky to keep up.
That's interesting because, for me with Liverpool, I still think they've got a lot to figure out, and I agree with many of the points, particularly Myers. I think you mentioned about their attack and just what they have at their disposal. Definitely got a lot of firepower, but I feel like they're still trying to understand how their midfield is going to work. And I mean that in more of a, the amazing Klopp era, right? You had that engine room and it was so specific in that way, where they had Wijnaldum in there and and Fabinho and Henderson. And it was such an engine room. And now they're different types of players. And every time they tried to introduce a different type of midfielder, when they kind of introduced Thiago, it just, for whatever reason, didn't quite work. Everything else just sort of seemed to get slightly worse at times. And I still think that therefore Klopp is trying to figure that out. And with Trent coming in as an inverted wing back, is he going to do that this season? I don't know. I feel like there's still a bit way to go. And also when you add the defensive situation, which I think is actually more of a situation than kind of, many people are giving attention to right now. It is a defense that probably needs to be refreshed. So it's just on that basis, I feel like Man United are in a better place and in a better kind of trajectory, less to figure out, if you like. It feels like Ten Hag has probably said, okay, this is exactly what I want to do. and I've started doing it last season, and now I'm just getting better players to fit into kind of exactly what I want to do, and he's kind of in that direction, which is ultimately why I've gone with Man United as third. I mean, both you guys also have United in your top 4, so I mean, Myers, I'm presuming you still think Man United are going to have a good season. Do you think that they are, do you think they're finishing 4th but are worse than last season, if that makes sense? Like, not, in terms of, I know positionally that would mean that they are worse, but do you think that they actually improve as a side, or do you think that they're going to have problems this season?
I think with United, there's two like kind of not question marks, but they've signed Onana. I think he's a new signing, and he, in terms of his the way he plays, basically, I think there's, what's the word I'm looking for? Not so much a risk, but yeah, maybe it's just there's a question mark over, is he the guy, basically? Is he going to be the guy that's kind of going to do what De Gea wasn't able to do? De Gea was a fantastic keeper, but he had obviously his kind of limitations, or the things that he wasn't good at, mainly with his feet. Is Onana that guy? And also, is Onana going to be, if you're going to be United's number 1, I think you also need to have an element of kind of like that assuredness and just like stability, kind of like like Van der Sar was. And I'm not sure he's going to be that. We're going to see. And I think the other thing is they've signed Højlund for massive money. Apparently he's not going to be fit. Well, I don't think he's going to be fit for the start of the season, but apparently the injury is worse than they first thought, or whatever. I don't know.
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
Something like
they
that.
Think it's basically so I'm going to get this wrong exactly, but it sounds like he has something came up in the medical which suggests that he's very prone to stress fractures in his back, and that suggests that for a period of time he will really struggle to play 2 games a week.
Oh, damn. Okay. Like Ledley King all over again.
Basically. Yeah.
Doesn't train.
Sorry,
just
Mike,
up for the matches. No. Yeah, so I think they're 2 key positions, and if Højlund sort of doesn't kind of bang when he does start playing, or let's just say he doesn't play the first few weeks of the season, whatever, they're maybe struggling for goals a little bit, which was their big problem last season. They only scored 58 goals last season. And you look around them, Brighton hit 72. So, it tells you kind of what they were lacking last season. I'm not necessarily sure they've addressed that. Again, jury's out on a new signing coming from, Serie A. So, yeah, that's why I think they might have a very similar season to last season. Sorry, just in terms of they were a little bit inconsistent. I think they had a really bad start to the season. Again, that was Ten Hag was trying a new way of playing and a new manager and everything. But yeah, I think they'll be fairly comfortably in the top 4, and now it's probably going to be top 5 is what we're going to be looking at, but fairly comfortably in that sort of top 4 or 5. But I'm not sure they're going to be as consistent as hopefully us and Man City and Liverpool.
So, do you think that 4th is acceptable for them? It's like, I know it doesn't really, in theory, it doesn't really make a difference if you're 3rd or 4th. Yeah. But if they are 4th, does Ten Hag come under some pressure? And I know maybe we're going to get onto the other. Maybe I should wait for that before. Yeah, maybe I'll wait for you to answer that specifically before we get to the answers of the other questions. But no, it's a really interesting point. Your point about their goals last season is a really, really good point. And you think about, have they really addressed that? I don't know. So it is a really good point. Chelsea are interesting because you and I both have them in our top 5. I have them as 4th and you have them as 5th. I wondered about that a little bit because partly because of the Nkunku injury, and he is a player that it feels like they have really, really wanted to get in and was one of the best players in Bundesliga, and losing him for almost 3.5 months. 3.5 months is almost like half the season, basically, right? It's a big injury because you come back after 3.5 months and then you're going to take some time to sort of bed in again. I'll be interested to see if they do anything more in the window, but I do feel like they've got themselves in a place where they've got a manager who is seemingly doing the basics right from what I've seen in preseason. They've got a squad which was kind of really randomly jumbled together throughout last season, but now kind of has had a little bit more time. They've got rid of some other players. I think they could be okay, actually. They don't have to worry about European football, it's one game a week, right? Like it's all Poch has to navigate. So I can see them finishing fourth. And Miles, I assume your rationale similar to fifth. Maybe if I just jump to Aaron quickly. I mean, Aaron, you don't have them in your top five. Was it even close for you?
No, I think Chelsea will struggle this season. I think a couple of teams will struggle. I just think, and admittedly, I haven't paid a lot of attention to Chelsea in pre-season, but there's just a lot going on there. New manager, a lot of new players, and that Nkunku, like it sounded like you said, Raj, they backed a lot of their forward planning on Nkunku being their guy in the attack, right? And you look at that attack now. Yes, there's Jackson, but then you've got Mudryk, Sterling, Gallagher, maybe.
Madueke.
Yeah, that doesn't Pochettino could get them to click, and it could work out, but I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. I don't see it, and I think the teams that tend to make top four nowadays are the teams that are settled and have a manager that really understands their club and kind of is building on the back of something. And I just don't see Chelsea having that. So I think it could be, I think they will have games where it all clicks and they just absolutely smash some teams. But
perhaps like against AFC Wimbledon, who they have just drawn in the League Cup.
Oh, really? Because they're in the second
round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we had to play in that at one point.
2 seasons.
Did we play AFC Wimbledon as well at one point? I
think
it was the second round of the League Cup.
Yeah, we did at home. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think Chelsea will struggle.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, I was just going to say that it's just so unpredictable with Chelsea, isn't it? I mean, they could still go and sign 2, 3, 4 more players. So, like Aaron and the point about maybe they haven't got enough firepower. Like they're linked with Vlahovic. They could go and sign something. Like who knows? It's just so unpredictable. The thing I like about Chelsea, in terms of just kind of on the face of it, again, it's going to be a completely different team to last season, new manager. But the thing I really like their defense. I really like, obviously, Reece James, Chilwell on the left and right and left, and then Silva and Colwell in the middle. Just looks like a very, very kind of solid defense. And I think Pochettino can sort of build on that. So yeah, I agreed with a lot of what you said, Raj, as well. Though I think they're going to finish, kind of a lot higher than they did last season.
And Aaron, and Brighton, Russ is calling it out. Brighton, big call that you've made, finishing fifth, and that would probably get them a Champions League spot. So you're saying Brighton fifth over a lot of other teams that would like Chelsea. Talk about. I mean, obviously they were a great package last season, and that it in many ways makes a lot of sense. What do you think? I mean, if they is any of this based on whether they keep Caicedo or not, or not?
Yeah, I think again this was a pick based on stability to a certain extent. I know they've lost McAllister and they might lose Caicedo, and they're like, it is a bit tricky. But I think if they get Kudus, that's I don't know a lot about him, but it seems like whoever Brighton want to sign, they turn out to be like really good players. Their scouting always seems to be on point, and I think they will probably keep I think they'll be quite settled. They've got Mitoma, they've got João Pedro. If they add Caicedo, they've got good players who just know what to do. And under their manager, they just seem very settled. The only distraction there is they're in Europe this season, which might stretch that squad a bit too much. But I just think, I think back to that game where they came to the Emirates and just played us off the park for 20 or 30 minutes. And if they can do that to us, they can do that to anyone. And a lot will depend on who they keep hold of, especially if they keep hold of Caicedo, and that's a very, very different Brighton team. But God knows what's going on with him. He seems like a very badly advised player.
Yeah, exactly.
Just right before you carry on, I don't know if you guys have just seen the tweet from Ornstein, not about Arsenal, But we're just talking about Caicedo and Lavia and Chelsea. So yeah, Southampton have tonight received offer from Chelsea for Lavia, 48 million, including add-ons. Closest anyone has come to Southampton's 50 million pounds valuation to date. So, like I was saying before, just don't, Chelsea are just this mental team.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
who the like they're just
going and buying everyone, aren't they?
Yeah, basically. So
do they need a number 6? Like, because they've got
sold Kante and Kovacic, and did they sell someone else as well?
Yeah,
so we could argue. I don't actually know who's there. Who do they play? Kind of
Well, they play Enzo, don't they?
Yeah,
Enzo. Yeah, that's it.
But it's you know, it'd be funny if they do get Lavia and then Liverpool react and pay the asking fee for Caicedo. That would be
I don't think Liverpool can afford him. I think they can't go to that like 70, 80, 90, whatever it is. I don't think they can.
I think
for whatever reason.
Yeah, if Chelsea are bidding 48 million for a player who's currently going to be in the Championship.
He's 19.
I think that Southampton would be crazy to turn that down.
Yeah, they would. They totally would.
Yeah.
Unless they genuinely believe they can get 50 million from Liverpool, which, I mean, this season
at this point, just bloody take it. I mean, do you know what I mean? As a percentage, that's like, Anyway, right. In the interest of time, let's crack on, boys. So, Champions League, who do we think? How do we think Arsenal can do, and who do we think is going to win? So, I have gone for Real Madrid winning the Champions League, with Arsenal getting to the semi-final. Mine's very similar. Miles has gone for Real Madrid winning the Champions League, with Arsenal getting to the quarterfinals. And Aaron has gone for City winning the Champions League and Arsenal getting to semi-finals. I got to start with Aaron, and this time again. So, you know what? I'm really jealous of your predictions. That sounds like a really stupid thing to say, because basically, there was a strong part of me that felt, because I don't see City winning both. Firstly, so I don't see City winning the Premier League and the Champions League, and there is a part of me that sees Champions League as being more likely than the league. So I really do love your predictions, by the way. But just talk to me a little bit about your rationale as to City winning the Champions League but not winning the Premier League, and Arsenal getting to the semi-finals. What's your rationale with both those things?
I think just if you look at City last season gone, they kind of just finally figured out Europe, right? Like I think they won the Champions League actually really comfortably last season. And there was that Real Madrid tie where they struggled for bits, but in the end that was pretty comfortable. I don't know who they played before that, but the final was very comfortable for them. And I just think they've got this knack now of, I think Guardiola has been building that team to win the Champions League, and they're still a very, very good team. Like I think I probably know why you guys have gone Madrid, and I can see the logic behind that. But I look at the way kind of City handled Madrid, I think there's still quite a big gap. And I don't know, I just think City have got this European pedigree now about them where they're consistently performing really well in the Champions League. And they probably should have won it at least one more time before last season. And I just think it's going to be very hard. And I think, look, like you said, they've won the league 3 times already. Got like some of these players have only won the Champions League once, and actually they're a better team. You'd argue that they're like a better team that should be winning more Champions Leagues, and I think they'll go for that and try and really like compete in that competition.
Fair. And you think Arsenal semi-finals?
Yeah, this was hard to call. I think, to be honest, the same reason why I think City will win it is why I don't think we can win it. I just think you need that experience, and we've seen it so much with us in Europe in some of these Europa League 2-legged ties where we just don't yet have that experience, that nuance, that tactical flexibility to really handle a 2-legged European tie in actually what is a lower pressure competition. I think it's something we're going to have to learn, and actually Arteta is going to have to learn because he's never done it. Like, he's never managed a team in the Champions League before. This is going to be his first season managing in the Champions League. He needs to figure all of that out whilst managing hopeful title push as well. And I think something will give. I think we'll get to the semi-finals and come up against a team like Madrid or like City that know how to just, perform in Europe, and we'll probably get a bit exposed somewhere for being a bit too naive in one of those ties.
So I basically completely agree with your assessment of Arsenal finishing in semi-finals generally. But I think it'd be amazing if we finish in if we get to semi-finals. Like, it's an amazing achievement in your first year back. I think it's partly also just testament to the fact that I think the Premier League is so powerful right now that a team like Arsenal who have just broken back into the Champions League can get to the semi-finals. Should we just both of us have gone with Real Madrid to win it? My perspective there is a bit out of desperation, to be honest, because it's kind of I couldn't see City doing it again. And then the only name that came to my head was Real Madrid. And I don't know if that's because they've won it like 5 out of the last 10 years. I'm just defaulting to Madrid. And it feels like, they don't have as competitive a league. They can focus on it. They can focus on it more so than, other English clubs. But to be honest, I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out for me going for them. I don't know about you. How do you feel? What was your rationale?
Kind of similar on the first bit you said, but look, the Champions League is Madrid's competition, isn't it? And they're probably quite hurt from what happened last season against City. Yeah, like Aaron said, they got kind of comprehensively beat. So I think they'll be back for that. Back for, not for revenge, but I think they'll be very, very keen on winning it again. And you just look at their team, man, and just signed Bellingham for 100 odd million, and just look across their team. They've got some of the best players in the world. And it's just hard to look past them. It's hard to look past City as well. So I think you could go for either of them. I'm guessing they're probably the 2 favourites in terms of odds. So yeah. And I think I didn't really want to pick City to win the league and the Champions League. So,
and you think Arsenal will get quarterfinals?
Yeah, like you guys sort of touched on it. I think Aaron touched on it when he said, first time Arteta's managing in the Champions League. We've definitely shown a lot of naivety in the knockout rounds of the Europa in the past under him. And Champions League's just a completely different beast. And I think if we get to the quarterfinals, I think that's pretty good. Obviously, it depends on who we might go out to. But I think the primary objective for us this season, the Champions League, you just got to get out of the group. We're not, we're used to, in the Wenger days, we were always in that first pot. And I think pretty much probably always were in the first pot. So it's very different this season, being in the second lot of seeds on the second pot. So we're going to have to hope for a bit of a kindish draw. I think if once you get out of the group, it's knockout football. Who knows? So yeah, but I think we might just come up against once you get to the quarterfinal stage, it gets pretty tough, and you might come up against a more savvy team, that a little bit more experienced, and it might be very, very tight. But yeah, I think quarterfinals would still be pretty good, to be honest. I think if we have the season that Aaron has predicted, bloody hell, Champions League semi-finals and winning the league, like, my God.
That's amazing. Yeah. We haven't seen the rest of his predictions yet, to be fair.
I just checked the Champions League odds. We are 6th favourites to win it.
6th.
So Man City, then Bayern, 2nd for some reason. Then Madrid, PSG, Barcelona, then us, then Man United, and then Napoli and Newcastle, believe it or not.
What?
Yeah, Newcastle would be 10th, I think. Arsenal, Man United, 7, Napoli 8, Newcastle 9.
It's interesting because don't want to go back to the top 5 discussion, but obviously none of us had Newcastle in our top 5, so we obviously all think that they're going to struggle to manage both of these competitions. Let's go to the FA Cup. FA Cup, what do we think is going to happen? So I have gone with Man United winning the FA Cup and Arsenal getting to the quarterfinals. Mice has gone for Arsenal winning the FA Cup. Aaron has gone similarly to me, Man United winning, but he's got Arsenal only making the 4th round. Mice, tell me, why are we going to win the FA Cup?
Because I want us to win something this season. No, didn't have us down to win anything else. No, I think it's time. It's time that we win a trophy under Arteta. I know we've won the cup in his first season, but it feels like we're on this kind of upwards trajectory or upwards journey. And at some point, I think you need a trophy to kind of have something to show for your hard work and have something to show for your progress. And I think the league might just be a bit too much for us this season. Like I said before, I think the Champions League is going to be too much of a stretch for us to expect to win that. And yeah, I think Arteta might look at the FA Cup, as a competition that to really target it, or to really go for it, to kind of bring that winning mentality into the squad. Just kind of tasted a little bit with the Community Shield the other day, and obviously that was against City and it was a last minute equaliser, so it kind of all meant a little bit more, but it doesn't really count as a proper trophy. So yeah, I think Arteta should, and I think he will, really value the FA Cup this season. And historically, Arsenal have obviously always been good in the FA Cup, and it's an important competition in terms of our history. So I think Arteta recognises that as well. Ex-player, ex-captain. So yeah, I can see us. See us winning the cup. Yeah.
Well, I hope you're right, brother. In the interest of time, I am going to try and skew along a little bit, but you, Aaron, and you and myself have both gone for United winning the FA Cup, and Arsenal going out in the quarters and Arsenal going in the fourth round, relatively much for muchness. But Man United, you think they're gonna do it, Aaron? And you think they're gonna come away?
I just reckon they'll kind of do what they did last year and get these draws against teams where those teams are like bottom half Premier League teams who just can't be asked for the FA Cup, and they'll just beat them, or they'll play someone at a bad time or something like that, and they'll get there and then they'll just get the luck of the draw. I mean, the FA Cup could be anything. I don't think we will. I think in a season where I'm predicting we're going to win the Premier League and get to the Champions League semi-finals, I think something has got to give. And I think around that third round, fourth round time is when, the fixtures really pack in January. And I think...
So you're happy to write it off?
I think, the manager will write it off to a certain extent. But yes. Yeah. So fourth round, fifth round, either way, I don't think we will be fully mentally committed to it. I think it's very hard to fight on 3 or 4 fronts in the course of a season.
Fair enough. Carabao Cup, Mize. So I have gone for Tottenham winning the Carabao Cup and Arsenal to be out in the fourth round.
What?
And all right. And Mize has gone for Chelsea winning the Carabao Cup and Arsenal being out in the fourth round. High fives on Arsenal out in the fourth round, Mize. And we shouldn't really be high-fiving about something like that. And Aaron, and you've gone for us winning it. It's unusual. We don't really win the Carabao Cup. It's like kind of
that's why I really want to win it, because I haven't seen us win a League Cup, and I think we could, even if we try, it's one of those where yes, we could deprioritize it and actually play a second string team, but so will everyone else. And actually, when it comes to the battle of the second string teams, our second string team is actually really good. So we've got so many players who are desperate for a game and actually desperate for minutes. You could see the likes of Smith Rowe, Timber. Havertz could get minutes there. Nelson, Nketiah, Thomas Partey, Jorginho could play. Take your pick, right? We could play a really, really good team. Tierney could play. David Raya could be in goal. I mean, that is as strong as any team that any other club will put out in that competition.
But by that logic, mate, though, then that applies to the FA Cup as well, right?
Yeah, I just think... Yeah, I did think this. And I think, again, it was a bit biased because I kind of want us to win a League Cup because I think it'll be fun. But I think the thing is, when you get to the FA Cup, you play against those championship teams who are really up for it, because it's you go away to Forest and they play a strong team. Whereas actually in the League Cup, even those Football League teams don't take it too seriously. So they will rotate a bit as well. And it's the risk is it gets to that silly 2-legged semi-final that also is in January. And we're just this is too many games now. But no, I think again, I think we'll probably end up like maybe getting a few decent draws and then getting to quite late on, and then Arteta thinking actually like, yeah, I could probably win a cup here, and all of a sudden we see a really good team in the semi-finals and final.
Interesting, mate. So I'm gonna hold off from expanding on my Spurs point because, you know, spoiler alert, it sort of relates to my hot take as well. So let's just go to the AFC top scorer. Right. So I have gone with Bukayo Saka, and both of you have gone with Gabriel Jesus. I'm surprised at that. That's really interesting. So like my rationale for Bukayo Saka was fairly vanilla, right? I mean, he takes our penalties. He is, you know, based on last season, as big a scoring threat as anyone. I think he'll be a season better. Everything for me pointed to him as the obvious choice. I do think that Odegaard will score goals. I do think Martinelli would score goals. I think Gabriel Jesus would score some as well. But I actually probably wouldn't have even had Gabriel Jesus in my top two. I think that Martinelli may score more goals than Jesus, and you've both gone with him. I mean, Miles, talk to me. Gabriel Jesus, you think that despite him missing even the first couple of games, he's gonna just make up for that?
Yeah, obviously I've taken. I'm guessing Aaron as well, taking a bit of a risk with this, yeah, because he's going to be out for the first few weeks. Look, obviously Jesus is not a kind of prolific striker. He never has been. And our goals last season were all shared right across the front four, including Xhaka front five. But I think when he was, I mean, I had a look at kind of how he did while he played last season and while he was fit. He was scoring at a rate in terms of like the minutes he played at 0.48 goals per game. So he's basically scoring
1 in 2, yeah.
1 in 2, and that and obviously he was out for 3 months. So he had a big interruption in the middle of the season. So I'm kind of, my prediction is on the basis that he is. It's a big kind of assumption that he's fit for 31, 32 starts this season. Obviously he's missing the first few, but if he comes back and he's fit and he stays fit, then I'm kind of looking at him as a player that should be scoring 17, 18, 19 goals. It's a big if. It's a big if because his fitness is a bit of a concern. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm basing it on. He plays a lot of games. If he plays a majority of games, he should score a fair amount of goals. And I think, you know, Saka, Martinelli, that, you know, possibly Havertz, maybe you might, you know, they're all going to score. Trossard, they're all going to score goals. But, you know, I just think if he plays those games, then he should be up there. And I can't really see anyone else. Saka was the other one that I was looking at, and very similar numbers as well. But Saka played every game last season, and I don't know. I've just got this really bad feeling that Saka, something's going to happen to him this season. He's going to be out for a bit. So yeah, that was the main reason I went for Jesus.
So, like, basically, I agree. I think with everything you said, Miles. I'm just on that last point. If Jesus and Saka both stay fit for the whole season, who do you think gets more goals?
Well, I've gone Jesus. So,
well, I thought you said that's based on the fact that you think Saka might get injured. Or
no, it's not so much that. But well, okay, yeah, I have like that's just like I just have a bad feeling about it.
Okay,
there's no reason for me to think that. It's just literally I don't know. He was fit the entire season, got kicked, you know, ridiculously in so many games last season. It's very surprising to pick up an injury, and I'm just worried that this season might be the season where that happens.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, I agree with you, Miles. I think you a quick look at like the stats, right? Like Saka, I think got 13 goals last season and was our top scorer in the league. Jesus, and that he played every single game, 38 games. Jesus got 11 in 28. So at that rate, I think he took, like, he had a period where he was injured, obviously, but then he had a period where he wasn't quite at his best, right? And I think, assuming he's back pretty quickly and he's not out for an extended period at the start of the season and he stays fit, I think he could just go to another level. Because there's a lot of pressure on him, I think, this season. Because you look at that squad now and you think, well, okay, who is the starting 11? Who is the weak link? Like, if we're going to spend another £100 million on a player next summer, who do you take out of that starting 11? And there's an argument to say it might be him. And yeah, I don't think he. And I think he's probably looking around saying, actually, look, this is the one season where I'm probably going to have no competition for this position. And after that, like, I'm going to have a lot of competition. So it's going to be like now or never for him, I think, to a certain extent. And I think there's pressure on him. And I think he will deliver. I think he will go on because he sees himself as this talisman for us. And for various reasons, hasn't really been able to do that, mainly because of injury last season. And I think there's like a fire there where he will just go to another level.
I think it's fair. Okay, should we go player of the season? Ask player of the season. Cool. Raj is in me. Why don't I point that out? I have gone with William Saliba. I've gone with William Saliba. Aaron's gone with William Saliba as well. And Myers gone with Saka. So it's interesting because Myers is going with Saka. But you don't think he's going to be top scorer. So it sounds like you think that he will still play enough and still do very well. Just not beat Jesus for goals, essentially.
Yeah, man, like he's the guy, right? He's one of the most consistent players that we've had last season, probably alongside Ødegaard and maybe Xhaka. But yeah, not just in terms of being available, but apart from sort of maybe tailing off towards the end of the season a little bit, and he wasn't the only one that did that. He was just fantastic all season. I think he got 25 goals and assists in the league last season. I think he might surpass that this season. He's looked really good at preseason. He looks sharp. He looks fit. He looks ready. And I think he's still such a young player. He's just going to improve. So yeah, I just expect him to go up a level this season. I don't think you need to say much more about Saka.
Yeah. William Saliba. Aaron, for me, I think that even seeing him in pre-season, not just the Charity Shield, but and yes, I will continue calling it the Charity Shield, but it just reminded me about how good he is. I think he's unbelievable. He's got everything. He's probably if he has a very good season in the Champions League, because I think he needs to have a very good Champions League before this happens. I think if he has a very good conversation in Champions League, he's in a serious conversation for best CBs in the world, right? Right now, you probably couldn't say that because he hasn't done it at that level yet. And obviously, it was one kind of breakthrough Premier League season. But he is so good. And I think that he's just going to go from strength to strength this season, personally. I think it's mad to think that last season was his transition season, if you like, and to just think the level he was playing at in his first season as a young player playing in the Premier League, I think is outrageous. And now he's got some more better players around him again. He's got Declan Rice. He's like probably the best like central midfielder at shielding a back four, arguably. Do you know what I mean? Like it's set up for him to just have some outrageously good season, in my opinion. Anything else, Aaron, you want to add?
No, not really. I think you kind of said it. I think last season, like, no one will convince me that basically if he had stayed fit, I think we would have won the league. And he's that good. And like you said, this last season was him figuring out the Premier League and getting set. And I've always said, when you sign a centre back, you have to give them a season in the Premier League to just let them be rubbish to like get to their true level. And like they need to understand the pace. They need to understand how strikers, like how they play against certain teams. They need to play against certain teams twice, and they figure it out. Saliba didn't need any of that. He was just like, I'm coming into this team and I'm just going to boss this from day one. And it is very scary, assuming he stays fit, which thankfully seems to have shaken off that worrying back issue. I'm very, very excited to see what he does. Because just like it's really hard for centre backs, in my opinion, to look good. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, you can't. It's really hard to like watch a highlights reel because a lot of things about centre backs is like their positioning off the ball, like how they organize their defenders around them, where they step up, where they sit back, and also then it's like how you shield the ball and then making those last-ditch tackles and the headers and stuff like that. But Saliba can do all of that, and he can just show like a clip of him on Match of the Day, and he'll still look good. He's got that phrase, he's a Rolls Royce, because he is a kind of defender that you can put on a highlights reel and just watch, and you will watch him. And that's what I like about him. He's just great. Yeah.
Just outrageous, isn't he? AFC surprise player. So who's going to surprise us this season? So I've gone for Leo Trossard. Maya's gone for Kai Havertz. Aaron's gone for Jakub Kiwior. That's such an interesting one. Can I start with you first? That is a super interesting call. That would suggest to me that you think he's going to get a decent amount of minutes, and probably more than a decent amount of minutes if you think he's going to be the surprise player.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to play all the time. I think what will happen, though, is like he is going to be the backup for Gabriel, right, in that left centre-back spot. But he's also got minutes at left-back last season. And actually, I think he played a bit at left-back this season, but although Timber's come in and seems to be able to do that inverted thing a lot better. I think he will kind of end up being the Tomiyasu type player for us, where Arteta will just go to him more often than we think. Like, I don't think he's going to be the reason we win the league, but I think actually having a player like him around will mean that we can rotate a lot more, and he can just be this utility guy that comes in and does a solid job all the time in defense. Like a bit like, you've got Trossard, Raj. I think he'd be like the Trossard, but for our defense. Like, he won't necessarily start every game. And maybe you think more highly of Trossard than you think he will, but I think Kiwior's a type where I think no one really knows a lot about him. And but what we have seen, I think he's just been quietly quite good. And that's just a huge uplift on what we had last season, where we had players who were not good coming in sometimes. And I think he could just be that dependable guy.
Well said. Mike, you've got Kai Havertz, and many have wondered how this is going to work out this season, where he's going to play, blah, blah, blah. He did have a really good Community Shield game in terms of a lot of what he brought to the side, right? That physicality, how he was able to really pin back the City defense. He missed a couple of chances, but I think overall, I think he did a very good job. Did that influence your decision here, or have you kind of had some other thoughts?
A little bit. He's obviously split the fan base, right? This signing, especially because of the money that we spent on him. And maybe it's a little bit ridiculous to say, 65 million pound player that we've signed is going to be a kind of a surprise player. If you're signing players for that sort of money, you're probably expecting them to hit the ground running and do very well. But I think the fact that, like I said, he's completely split the fan base. I'd probably say more fans are questioning him than actually kind of backing him or have a good feeling about him this season. And even at Wembley on Sunday, like, we're speaking to mates and stuff, and a lot of people at half time were sort of like, Havertz missed those chances, you should have taken them. And people are already kind of, it feels like he's just going to be a very easy target this season when things are not quite going right, when things don't work for him, when he does miss a couple of chances or doesn't, kind of hold up the ball or miscontrols it, which I think is going to happen. I think he is going to be a little bit frustrating. I think he's going to be one of those players that we're just going to, fans are going to kind of go for. But I think there's just so many positives so many good attributes that he seems to have. And we saw some of it on Sunday for sure. We've seen it in pre-season as well. Like, he adds this new dimension and a very different dimension to our team, to the way that we can essentially play in terms of getting the ball forward. Like last season, every game, no matter who we played, we were trying to build out from the back. There was no long ball, there was no outlet, there was no direct option. And now, when you've got Havertz, if he does play, well, wherever he plays, but let's just say he plays kind of through the middle as a striker, or even if he's playing a little bit deeper, he's the guy that can do that for us. And I think that could be massive for us tactically. He's obviously got the ability to play in different roles. Like I said, I think he could be that kind of focal point for or in attack for certain games. And I think he's actually going to be really critical in terms of like picking up or getting like key goals. I think he's going to be, when it comes to the last 10 or 15 minutes of a match and it's 0-0 or 1-1 and we need a goal, I think Havertz is going to be the go-to guy, where I'm not saying we're going to go super direct and just start launching balls into the box, but when we get set pieces, when we get corners at the ends of games, I think he's going to be the guy that is going to be causing a lot of kind of havoc havoc in the box, but he's going to be he's just going to be very dangerous aerially. And yeah, I think the fact that, like I said, a lot of people are already not backing him, a lot of people are already kind of dismissing him as a flop signing. I think he's got a point to prove, and obviously with what happened at Chelsea and kind of he didn't really happen for him there. So I think that's why I've kind of gone for him as like the surprise play for this season, not based on his price tag, but more based on people are already writing him off before he's even played for us, basically.
It's a great shout. I could have honestly was a contender myself. I've gone with Leo Trossard because I know we touched on a lot of it in our last episode. Just one about how good he's been in preseason. I thought he was great when he came on in the Charity Shield as well. But I think that he will get a lot of minutes, and I think it may even be a case where when we play big games, he gets favoured. And I don't know, and like I don't know if it's a case where Arteta will just continue to enjoy using him as this impact player. What does Arteta call subs now? He calls them like impactors. Is that what he says? If he continues kind of something like that, if he sees that as his role, then fair enough. Because in fairness, it's an important part of the game. But yeah, I just think he's quality. I think he just makes such a difference. He's such a dangerous player, and I think he's gonna score some really, really big goals for us this season. Really important goals.
I was going to ask, mate, just before we move on. So with Trossard, do you think what do you think he's going to be like an alternative to Martinelli? Do you think he's going to be like, for example, on Saturday? I know we're not previewing Saturday yet, but do you think he's an option through the mid? Like, where do you think he's going to play most of his games or most of his minutes? What position?
Well, I think mostly it will be left, but I think if you look at his goal, it was from that right hand side.
Yeah.
So I don't know still if Arteta is willing to do that a little bit more. I'd love him to. I'd love him to play Trossard to on the right every now and again to help out the Saka workload. But I do think overall it'll be a Martinelli kind of alternative. Yeah. What about you? Do you disagree?
No, I just think he's obviously, like you said, he scored from the right. He can play like a little bit deeper. He can play false nine. It's just lots of just variation in terms of the positions that he can play. So that's really exciting. I think he's just one of those players that he obviously seems to do really well off the bench. When he starts, he does really well as well, but he seems to be this, impact player. So it's very hard because we all love Martinelli as well. And you kind of feel like Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, Ødegaard, there's no need to kind of really do anything different there. So it will just be really interesting to see kind of where he gets his minutes. But I think all three are very good shouts, to be fair. The Trossard one especially, I can see him having a really good season.
Let's get onto a fun one. PL flop team. So who do we think is going to flop this season? So I have gone with Crystal Palace. Mize has gone with Everton. Aaron and you have gone with Chelsea. Mize, what do you tell me about Everton? I mean, they had a pretty poor season last season. They just avoided relegation. I presume you think they're going to get relegated this year.
Well, this is the thing, right? I'm not saying that they will, because they've obviously got Dyche as manager, and I think when you appoint Sean Dyche as your manager, I think you're basically saying we want to stay in the Premier League. Like, that's your ambition. You're not really trying to do anything more. Maybe after 3 or 4 seasons of like stability, that's when you start to kind of look a bit higher up the table. But I think that kind of sets the ambition for the season when you appoint that sort of manager. And they finished 16th a couple of seasons ago. Like you just said, Raj, they finished 17th last season. So they're basically becoming regular like relegation contenders, but they're a massive club and they should not be anywhere near where they've been. So that's kind of the reason I went for them. And in terms of like why I think that's a flop. I think if they're finishing 16th, 17th again, that is a flop for them. I think there's a very good chance they go down, because I think if you look at their signings, they basically haven't bought anyone, or they haven't spent any money. They bought Danjuma, who was at Spurs last season, but they haven't bought him. They've loaned him. They got Ashley Young on a free. I don't think they've actually bought anyone else, and they've let go of Yerry Mina. Connor Cody has gone back to Wolves. Well, I don't know where he's gone from Wolves, but I think he was on loan from Wolves. He's gone back. They obviously sold Anthony Gordon in January. So, like, I look at their squad. I was looking at the players that they've got. It's so like uninspiring. It's so uninspiring. I don't know where they're going to get goals from. So maybe they won't necessarily go down, but I don't. It's Everton. Like I would say that finishing in the bottom 5 is a flop for them. So yeah, that's what I've gone for them really.
Interesting. It didn't quite hit me how how inactive they've been in the transfer window. Because I've got similar logic as to why I think Crystal Palace will be the flop team. And I think Palace are going to get relegated this season. And it really pains me to say that because they are my second team and I love Palace, but Palace fans defend their owners to the hill. And I think they've got the worst, they haven't got the worst owners in the league. Everton have arguably got the worst owners in the league, but Palace's owners are not, Steve Parish is not right for them at the moment. Or that I know it's a bit more complicated than that because they've kind of got this little kind of consortium, if you like, and Parish is effectively like the main person, the spokesperson and the chairman, of that group. But there's no money that's being spent. They've bought some Brazilian dude who apparently is really talented. And apparently that's funny, right? He's got a Ballon d'Or clause in his contract. If he wins Ballon d'Or, they get an extra 5 million, which is mental. But they've lost Zaha. They apparently, may lose Olise. Eze is being rumored away. I don't think they will lose Eze, but there's rumors. I mean, you could see. I mean, look at the end of the day. If City don't end up getting Paqueta, it feels like I wouldn't be surprised if they try and go for Eze. And I just don't hear Palace doing much, and they already struggled last season. So the reason why, obviously, if they get relegated, it's going to be a flop. But I also think it's just awful because they've been an established Premier League club for a while now, and I think the penny just hasn't dropped that in order to survive in the Premier League now, you really need to show some serious ambition, even just to survive. So, I mean, you and I might have gone for two teams that, we think are going to be towards really that sort of bottom end of the league. I mean, Aaron, you've gone for Chelsea. I presume you don't think they're going to be as dire as the teams that we've suggested.
Yeah, I don't think Chelsea are going to get relegated, sadly.
No.
But I do agree with both of your calls that Everton are awful. I just hate. I think the one team when we were going for our really bad patch, and I was just like we would draw to lose to Southampton and do dumb things all the time when we were finishing around 8th, and I was like this is really bad. I would watch Everton, and they would be the only team that would cheer me up because they would just be on the verge of they had a brilliant team. They would do something amazing, and then they just go and lose at home to Burnley or something like that. And I'd just be like, I think it was really frustrating being an Arsenal fan at that point, but I was like, at least I'm not an Everton fan because they just do my head in. I don't understand them as a club. So, yeah, I do think Everton are just, their team right now is awful. I think Palace, I don't think you're thinking they'll get relegated, right? But I think
I am. I do think they'll get relegated.
You think they're actually relegated? Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. No, I think they've got enough quality compared to the teams around them to not get relegated. I think they're probably going to languish around 14th, 15th all season and just be a bit bored. But anyway, Chelsea, I think it's kind of related to when we're talking about the top 4 or top 5. I think they're just so unsettled, especially with the injury. They've spent so much money over the course of the last kind of 2.5 windows that when you spend, almost 500 million quid, you can't finish 5th or 6th. That level of spending is the stuff that we are now getting challenged to do, is push on to challenge for a title, right? And I kind of see Chelsea maybe finishing 6th, 5th, kind of between 5th and 8th, which I do think is actually quite bad, given what
But that has considerably different repercussions though now, doesn't it? Because if they finish 5th there in the Champions League, they'll take that.
Fine, yeah, I think 5th is probably okay. Yeah, that you're right. So maybe I don't even think they'll finish 5th. I think, like I said, I think the other teams around them will probably finish higher. I think, yeah, I think Chelsea could finish anywhere between 6th to 10th, which I think for Chelsea is, given what they've done, pretty bad. And because it's like, if that was another club, like if that was a club that was like, okay, we're rebuilding, like if that was Arsenal 3 years ago, I think we as fans got comfortable with the fact that this is going to be a painful process. It's going to take a while and we'll be on the way up. I don't know if Chelsea and Todd Bowley will be tolerant of Pochettino if he finishes 8th or 7th in the league this season.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they will be patient if he finishes that low. Hot takes. Let's go for our hot take of the season. So I will start on mine. Well, mine is for Spurs to win a trophy. That was my hot take. And my thinks Kane will outscore Haaland. So, I mean, big assumption in the first
Bundesliga
of him staying.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm gonna. When we talk about it, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
and Aaron and saying Wolves to be relegated. It's not really that hot a take, but anyway.
I was going to say it's not.
I thought it was a hot take.
They're probably odds on. They're probably like one of the favourites to go down, apart from the promoted.
Are they? Oh, okay.
I don't know. I haven't checked. We can check.
They've just got a new manager today, haven't they? Because Lopetegui's left. But anyway, I'll go on my hot take. Spurs to win a trophy. Obviously, it's a hot take because that doesn't happen. They don't win trophies, and I think that they're going to win a trophy. I think it will be the Carabao Cup, and the reason is it. So I think that firstly, it sounds like Postecoglou's doing some fun things with them. Actually, in preseason, they look like they're playing decent football, and I think that he strikes me the sort of person that he will look at that and think, if I can just win something, I will buy so much time, belief, you name it. Like, you know, it almost, but it's huge for them. If he can win that, it's absolutely massive. And so if he can just go almost all out for the League Cup, I think that he will feel like, you know, that's a possibility. And they've still got an okay squad. I mean, particularly they keep Harry Kane. The squad's still kind of half decent. So I think they could do that. I think that Spurs will be okay this season. I think their biggest enemy is their fans, to be honest, because I think their fans still think that they are a massive club. So even though their fans right now hypothetically are acting like they are willing to be patient, what does patient actually mean? Would they be patient if they have a 7th, 8th place finish again? They will probably say yes if you ask them right now. But finishing 7th or 8th means you lose a lot of games. And going through that, I don't think Spurs fans tolerate it. If the bigger teams are coming and they're winning, and I think they're gonna really struggle, particularly if we continue doing well. But I think Postecoglou will see that and think that if he can just win a trophy, then everyone will be okay. So that's my take. That's my hot take. Spurs to win a trophy under Ange. You know, League Cup's not a big trophy, but you know, it's a trophy. My's Kane to outscore Haaland. Do you want to give us your caveats?
Well, yeah, the obvious one is what Aaron was saying. Big assumption that he stays with Spurs, which I don't know what's going to happen, but I think he will. But yeah,
okay, massive
assumption that this is Premier League. Yeah, so assuming he stays in the Premier League, he stays with Tottenham. Well, let's just say assume he stays in the Premier League.
So that's interesting. You think he might?
I mean, look, I think if he stays in the Premier League, he probably stays at Tottenham because I don't think anyone else is going to pay the money that Levy wants. But yeah, I mean, look, I was trying to go for as hot of a take as I possibly could, not like Aaron's where he's just gone for a relegation candidate to be relegated.
I thought that was quite a hot take, but
we'll come that. So yeah, I mean, look, I think with Harry Kane, he got 30 goals last season. I don't think he was actually that far behind Haaland in terms of goals scored in the league. He got 30 goals last season, and he still didn't finish top goal scorer. And I think, you know, in terms of his like pedigree. We know you're going to probably get 25 plus goals if he stays fit for the season. I think he's got an even better supply line this season now with Maddison supplying him and Son and Kulusevski. And like you said, Raj, I've kind of seen a little bit of them in preseason, or at least highlights and stuff, and completely agree. They are playing some decent stuff. And I think with the way that they are playing, or the way that Postecoglou wants them to play, I think it might suit him, or at least, should I say, I think it might just result in them being a little bit more of an attacking team and playing the Spurs way, as Spurs fans like to call it. And I think that's just going to suit him. And obviously, look, he's chasing this record, right? As long as he's in the Premier League, he's chasing Shearer's record, and he's not going to get it this season because I think he's like 50-ish goals off it, 40 or 50 goals. He's not going to get it this season, but he obviously wants to get it, and he wants to overtake Shearer. And I think there's just a lot of motivating factors. And I wonder if this could be his last season with Spurs if he stays. So he'll obviously want to do well for that reason. But I think he's just the kind of player, like, obviously he's a goal scorer, selfish player in that sense. All goal scorers are. And I think he's just desperate. He may end his career not winning a single trophy, but if he gets, I think he'll probably be satisfied or very, very happy with being the all-time Premier League goal scorer. And, you know, Haaland is obviously, look, Haaland could easily go and match what he did last season, but I think Aaron said it before, right? Like, that was a very, very high standard he hit. There's no kind of guarantees that he's going to hit the same numbers that he did. I also think there's a factor here with KDB. Like, KDB didn't start on Sunday, and I said it before, he doesn't start every game for City, and he was a massive reason for Haaland getting as many goals as he did. It was basically like, you know, supplied him a lot of goals. Or yeah, and I don't know. I'm just not with KDB. I think there might be maybe he's not going to play as many games. Maybe Pep's going to try something different. So I'm just not sure if Haaland's going to necessarily hit those ridiculous numbers that he hit. And I think with Kane, you know what you're going to get. So yeah, that's why I think he potentially could get more goals than Haaland this season.
Yeah, interesting. Very, very, very logical there, and I think I can see that happening. I'm interested though, you know, like how it does work out under Postecoglou, because I agree that I think there will be more attacking, but I sort of wonder whether that's a good thing for Harry Kane or not. You know, is it? It feels like he's just done really well being the focal point of systems where, you know, it's not always kind of incredibly fluid attacking play, but it's, you know, he is the focal point. But yeah, no, that'll be very interesting. Aaron, Wolves to be relegated. Okay, look, I fair point. I mean, they weren't on my list of teams that are going to get relegated. Last season, where did they finish again? It was pretty poor, right? But it was, I want to say 14th. Yeah, something like that.
They're fourth favourites to go down. So Luton, then Sheffield United, then Forest, then Wolves.
Really? Interesting. So but where Burnley?
Burnley.
Well,
yeah, I mean, they're like, so after that, it's Everton, Bournemouth, Fulham, Burnley, Palace, West Ham. So they're, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, West Ham are an interesting one as well. I was close to predicting they will get relegated about a week ago.
So funny.
I think they'll probably sign. Like, if they sign Maguire, I don't rate Maguire, but he's a type of defender that you probably want when you're in a relegation fight. And it'll probably be the reason. Like, they'll sign a few players like him and they'll be okay. It's pretty uninspiring if you're a West Ham fan, but yeah. Whereas Wolves, yeah, I just think they've sold so many players. Apparently they can't afford to buy anyone. And I've always had an issue, you guys will know this, with their very suspicious transfer dealings over the last 3-4 years. I think actually they're probably paying the price of signing some of those players now. So yeah, they're just a very dull club. Don't do anything exciting. Usually just to hover around 14th, 15th all season, win some games, lose some games. And I think they'll probably lose a few more than they win this year and struggle.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, a closing comment I make on Wolves, it was fine. I don't know if you guys saw that, you know how they sold Raul Jimenez. I think it was for 5.5.
Right?
Yeah, and I think it was 5.5 million. And there was a tweet which said Raul Jimenez is the first ever player to be sold for his fantasy Premier League price.
Quite good.
But anyway, look, fantastic. That wraps up our season predictions. So we've been talking about 1.5 hours now. We probably won't talk about David Raya, but let's very, very quickly talk about the first Premier League game for Arsenal this Saturday at 12:30 at the Emirates Stadium. Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest. It is back. We are on the back of a Community Shield victory. The vibe is good. We are playing a team who we pasted at home last season. How do we think we're going to do opening game of the season? So what we're doing this season, by the way, is we are playing a little gambling game. Aaron, do you want to explain the gambling game that we're playing?
Yes. This yet unnamed game. I'm sure we'll come up with a name for it soon. It's not called Arsenal v Nottingham Forest predictions, by the way. That's just what's going on today. We're going to put £1 each on our correct scoreline guess. I'll get us guess for the scoreline, and whoever is correct will obviously pocket the winnings, and whoever doesn't will lose £1. And we'll do that for every game, at least for the Premier League games. Let's see how organised we are, see if we can stretch ourselves to doing this midweek in Champions League as well. And we'll see who wins the most money, basically. The cool thing about this is if you go for a rogue prediction and you get it right, you are very heavily rewarded. If you go for a very safe prediction and you get it right, you're rewarded, but not so much. So we'll see. It could be fun. It could be terrible. Nero, for those of you who remember him, is still involved in this. Some of you, there are probably people who, like kids who listen to this podcast, who were born after Nero left this podcast. So they've never heard Nero on this podcast, but they're like, who is this guy? But he is still here. He's still alive and well and contributing to this game, we hope. If that chart goes down from 4 columns to 3 columns, you'll know why. But look, we'll see how it goes. And you can see our predictions there. We'll put the odds on. And yeah, may the best man win.
And what's happening with the winnings?
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. I think we
haven't thought about
the winner. Yeah. So we had a bit of a debate about what should happen to the winnings. I think the winner keeps everyone's winnings.
You two money making bastards, both of you.
Well, it could be you, mate.
Could be you.
Like the national.
I'm terrible at this game, but maybe it could be me.
We'll see. This might change. That rule is not set in stone yet.
You can't change it halfway. You made the decision now.
Yeah, that's it.
You made the decision.
It's set in stone.
So
because when you're bottom of the table and you'll be like, no, I don't want.
What if we all lose money? Yeah, there's a chance here that we all end up losing. We get 38 out of 38 score predictions wrong, which is actually probably the most favourable outcome here.
That's true. But then
we know not to do it next
all
season,
of us lose 38 quid.
Yeah, but that makes no difference. So if we all lose it, that money doesn't go to anyone because there is no money.
But then someone should win, right? Whoever lost the least should win.
What do they win?
Nothing. But I know. That's what I mean. That's why there's a flaw in the system. We should think through this.
Okay. Well, do you want to present the predictions?
Okay. Nero went for a 2-1 win. That's 10-1 odds. Raj, you went for a 1-0 win, also 10-1. Myers, you went for a 3-1 win. It's 11-1. And I went for a 4-0 win, which for some reason is 9-1. But yeah, they're the score predictions and they're the odds there. Why don't you, Raj, talk us through your prediction for the game and how you see it going?
I see it as one of those games where I think that we will dominate the game. I just think that it'll be one of those huffing and puffing type games. One of those kind of classic. It feels like it happens sometimes where you get one of the really strong teams playing like a relatively unfancy team at home, and it's just it's just not quite going in. The ball's not quite going in. Everyone's not as sharp. So that's it. I don't think we're going to have any trouble. I think that if we had looked a little bit shakier defensively against City, then I probably would have gone for a score that was more like a 2-1 or a 3-1. But yeah, no, like that's my basic rationale. I'm going for that 1-0. I think that yeah, and I think it's gonna. You know what? I'm gonna call the goal scorer. I think Kai Havertz is gonna score.
You don't get extra money for that, by the way.
I don't. I know. I know. It's just street cred. Go on, Mize. What about you? 3-1.
Yeah, I think we are. Look, I think we're in a good place at the moment. I think there's going to be a lot of kind of good feeling, a lot of hype before the game. Everyone's coming off the back of a fantastic season, and then what we've done in the summer. So I just think the mood around the Emirates is going to be really, really good. And I think in terms of the players, they must be on a pretty big high after beating City. Whatever you say about the competition, whatever you say about the Charity Shield, Community Shield, winning on penalties, it is a bit of a monkey off our backs, I feel like. So I think they're going to come into it pretty buoyant, and I think it's going to be kind of like a nice day out of the Emirates type of win. I think Forest last season, they basically stayed up based on their home form. I think they were awful away from home, from what I remember. And yeah, I think it should just be a comfortable 3-1. I actually also was thinking Havertz will score, and that will be good for my prediction of like kind of surprise player. So yeah, I'm going 3-1.
Aaron, and you just think it's an old-fashioned battering?
Yeah, I think, like Maya said, I think it'll be a bit of a nice day out in the sun. I think Forest will probably try and just sit deep because that's kind of all they do in these big games. And eventually we'll break. Like it could go, I can see it going how you described, Raj, where we just struggle to break them down. But I'm kind of hoping first half an hour we manage to just break the deadlock. And I think the players will be energized. I think, Forest are probably quite sensible to try and just suck the energy out this tie. But I think we'll get one, and then I think it'll be pretty comfortable. And I'm hoping we keep a clean sheet because we haven't been able to do that for a while in pre-season. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, and last season that was an issue, right? Home clean sheets was just a problem. So yeah, look, awesome. Can't wait. 12:30 is can't come soon enough. And the Premier League's back, guys. It's just awesome. It's like buzzing. Like tomorrow, it's not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday. On Friday, Friday night football is where it all kicks off. So, yeah, can't wait, guys. It's been really, really fun. And as always, this has just got me well geared up for the start of the season. And everyone who joined, Russ, as always, thank you for your comments. What a legend. And I know it's been quite a long episode, so thank you for everyone for bearing with us. Please like and share and subscribe to our podcast. We really appreciate all of your support. Mize, Aaron, any closing comments, boys?
No, thank you for sticking with us, and please like, subscribe, as always.
Yep, same. Cheers, guys. A very good episode.
Cheers.